Well, hello everyone, and welcome to USfanTV Live. We are counting down to the just about 48 hours to the kickoff of USA and TNT. We've got TJ going to join us here shortly, and in the meantime, we've got Pat live out in Denver. He's actually at a show for Brad with Brad Guzan and Michael Bradley discussing the Snow Classico. Unfortunately, without Jermaine Jones there, we don't get to talk about Snow Froze, but we'll pass it over to Pat here for a minute and let him see or let him show you what's going on. Pat, can you hear us? I may have deleted your mic. Not hearing you. Well, now I'm not getting audio from Pat, but let's see if we can pick him up here. At least we can show you guys what he's watching. I don't know if that's going to work, but whatever. This is live TV, right? Or live internet broadcast. So anyway, welcome everybody. Like I said, we are watching, counting down to U.S. Trinidad and Tobago. Looks like Pat has left us. That is good. He must be enjoying himself. He said the show was cool so far. We'll have to check in with him maybe afterwards, or we'll see him Thursday night if nothing else after the game. We're looking at predictions for the lineups. I guess first off, we'll check the. You guys may have seen. I put up a little something on. I put up a little something on Twitter. Checking now because TJ still hasn't got the link, so we're waiting on him to show up. Good old TJ can't get his connection to work, so he's like sending me things about, oh, come on, get here. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. We will talk while I type, right? Okay. Anyway, you may have seen the lineup, attempted lineup or suggested lineup that I posted earlier. Kind of my guess is going to be similar to what we had or what I predicted for the game on Saturday, in that I expect us to have a somewhat experimental defense, or at least a secondary defense. I still think Villafana and Yedlin will start on the wings, but I think in the center we're probably going to see a different set of defenders. I don't think we're going to see Cameron and Brooks. Cameron, one, carrying a yellow card. I think it's just better to save him, keep him safe for Mexico. And Brooks, since he did leave early, maybe he is still carrying a bit of an injury. Things looked like maybe he was hurt there. So there is the chance that, if nothing else, you just want to keep him safe. The good news, I should have probably started off by saying sorry for missing Saturday. I was at the U2 concert in Chicago. I was texting Pat and TJ after the game to let them know, but I know they made some comments about it because I was listening. But anyway, I hope you guys had fun without me. The nice thing about this game on Thursday is that should we win, we probably have a good chance of moving into third place. At least for 3 days or 5 days, whatever it is, between 4 days, I guess, between the games, because Panama is also playing Costa Rica, and they're playing them at home. The likelihood, I think you'd say, is that these games, Mexico and Costa Rica both play at home. So I think you're looking at probably the top two teams kind of extending their leads here. Costa Rica playing Panama, I think you have to expect that Costa Rica is going to win that game. In which case, Panama being the third place team, presumably if we win, we should move past them. We should at least tie them and then move past them on goal differential. But TJ is flipping me off in pictures to say that he hasn't arrived yet or hasn't gotten the invite yet. Anyway, we should move past Panama then. The big problem is that come Sunday, when Panama plays, Panama plays Honduras, there is the chance that they get the points back. So I think it really does put the weight on the weight on us to get a result. And well, to not only to get a big win Thursday night, but to get a result at Azteca. Despite how hard that always is, it's going to be at this point. You know, we've made our own bed. We have to lie in it. We have to get our results. We have to do something here. We're still seeing that TJ and now Pat is like weighing in to harass him. Hopefully, it's great stuff. Anyway, you know, it's really on us, incumbent on us, really, to get a result here, to show that we are, you know, capable of, you know, putting ourselves into a World Cup position here. The nice thing about our hex schedule is that it does end fairly easily. You know, if there is such a thing, our hardest games are behind us, or at least will be behind us, really after Sunday. So, you know, the second half, the last half of the games are much, relatively speaking, much easier. But we have to get, you know, it's really down to us now. I won't say it's a must to get a result, but it's a big enough deal that we have to have. We can't just keep kind of hoping for something to fall our way. We're only in fourth place, but you really want to see us at least move into third and get some kind of safety so we can start sealing things come September, you know, maybe early October or something. I see a lot of you guys talking about positions 3-5-2, 4-2-3-1. I would guess I actually kind of have to go with Leipzig there, that I think a 4-2-3-1 may be best. I wouldn't be surprised at a 3-5-2 on Thursday, but I do think 4-2-3-1 is probably where we're going for Mexico. Sorry if you guys are just talking about Thursday. I missed the beginning of some of the comments while I was trying to get everyone on board here. I see us with a bit of an experimental lineup for, or I shouldn't say experimental, but more of an attacking lineup for TNT, because we just need the goals. You know, we have the most goals scored so far in the hex, but we also have the second most against. So, you know, we got to do something. We're only at a +1 right now. Panama is even, so, you know, if they lose, that should already put us past them. But when you look at Costa Rica and Mexico are both +4, if there's, you know, some sort of tiebreaker, if we're trying to reach maybe second, we got to get some more goals, and we got to pour them on at some point. And you would hope that TNT at home is going to be a chance for that. So I could see where we might go with an attacking lineup. I actually, in my predictions, I'll go back to naming those. I did have Bradley and Acosta at the base of the midfield. I went Pulisic and Johnson out wide, with Pulisic really able to kind of cut inside. I have Bobby Wood and Josie Altidore up top. I could see where Josie gets a rest, particularly because he's carrying a yellow card as well. However, since, you know, Bobby didn't score the other night, I think the chance that he's going to get, sent out by himself are slim, and I just don't see Dempsey getting used here. To me, you save him as a sub, you bring him on if you really need him, but in the end, you should have the chance to score. You should be able to get some points on the board without sending him out there, and then you can rest him for the Mexico game, when presumably, or I think highly likely, he's starting. Hey, TJ, you finally decided to join us, huh?
You dumb motherfucker.
Welcome to you too. I'm talking about the lineup now. I'll cue you in a little here, I guess. I've got Tim Ream and Omar Gonzalez in the center because I'm just expecting that with Cameron's yellow card and Brooks possibly still nursing an injury, Bruce isn't going to send him out. Also, what's the point? I mean, if we can't beat Trinidad and Tobago with our secondary center back pairing, maybe we don't belong in the World Cup anyway. I've still got Viafani and Yedlin out there because I think so long as this is still kind of a bit of a work in practice, a work in progress, I should say, you want to get them as much practice as possible. And, maybe this gives them the chance to show what they can do and get some more confidence and make Mexico think about some more things ahead of Sunday.
That's all right. I've been watching the whole time, and I think you're wrong. I think this is where you go for the throat. You make sure you get 3 points this week, and Sunday. If you get a point, great. You need 3 Thursday.
I think we get 3 regardless. I mean, it's Trinidad and Tobago at home. I mean, you should be able to get 3 at away versus TNT, even with kind of a B team.
How did we do in the Gold Cup against them last year?
Well, I mean,
was
a lot of things that. I mean, yeah, I would have said the same thing about Jamaica. Sorry, Simon, if you're watching, but and we know how that turned out. But whatever, this is a World Cup qualifier. I mean, in the end, this is a bigger deal. This should mean more to the players. They should be trying harder. They should be doing more. And granted, it's the same thing for TNT, but I just see it as this is why they're there. This is this is everything we're playing for. And to me, that means we're going to see a stronger result.
And I guess, like I said, where I disagree with you is I don't think you screw around with your lineup. I think you're going to see the same lineup more or less. My guess is Brooks does not play on third. I think his injury will stop that. But I think otherwise you're going to see this. The others are going to be the same from the weekend, and you're just looking to make sure you get 3 points out of these next 2, and not because if you get 3, then the pressure's off going into Mexico City, as opposed to if you go with an experimental lineup and you fail, now you need a result in Mexico City as opposed to just like a result in Mexico City.
Well, but I mean, and I wouldn't call this exactly an experimental lineup that I was suggesting, but you've still got Dempsey on the bench. If we haven't scored come the 70th minute, I think you're sending him in. It's just keeping guys like him who maybe need the rest or could be saved just because of his age for the most important game. And in Cameron's case, look, I understand why if Brooks isn't out there, you maybe want Cameron just for a little extra stability. Having said that, we should be able to do that against TNT regardless. And why not save him from getting some kind of bullshit yellow card that then keeps him out of Mexico, especially if Brooks is hurt and may not be able to play in Mexico himself.
Like I said, I don't think Brooks is going to be ready. I think you need Cameron out there. I don't think you want to leave a gaping hole in the center of your defense, especially even when you have them, you can still be giving up goals like it's nobody's business. I mean, need I remind you of Costa Rica, and just how well that played out with our center back pairing. So, Demps, I agree. I think Deuce will be on the bench. That might be your change because you'll have Altidore back, but I think you're playing your back as much of your backs as you can, because the last thing you want to do, you were talking about earlier, you don't want your goal differential to change any. You need your strong defense. And if you lose Cameron from Mexico, again, like I said, if you've got 3 against TNT, you're not as concerned about what happens in Mexico. You can try. That's where you can try some guys there.
The thing is, and this is where I'm just looking at it as our work is cut out for us. We're still stuck in 4th place. Realistically, nothing changes, or there's a good chance kind of nothing changes. When you look at Panama is above us, they play Costa Rica at Costa Rica Thursday night, but then they play Honduras at home on Sunday. There's a good chance that they're going loss win, so they're just kind of evening with us, and they're still a point ahead of us. So we're not moving up in that case. We're stuck where we are.
Well,
And
but
the easiest part of our hacks is still ahead. Having said that, so what? Like you don't want to keep pushing off till tomorrow. To me, you want to play for some kind of result in Mexico.
I'm not saying you don't want to play for any kind of result, but I think you guarantee your 3 points before you worry about Mexico City. That's the key. I think kind of like hockey, and this is kind of a weird analogy, but bear with me a little bit. Me and a weird analogy, go figure. When you're playing, how many times have you watched like the Blues or anybody good when they're playing against some of the top teams? You'll see them run out the backup goalie for the simple fact of you're keeping your starter for when you need the points, and the points are a little easier to obtain. I think that's the same. That's the kind of the same concept I'm going with this. Make sure you get your 3 before you worry about trying to get your ones in Mexico City. I think the result in Mexico City is a bigger deal for fans than it is that team. I think the team knows what they're up against there, and it's going to be, if they can do it, outstanding. However, guarantee your 3 before you put a lot more pressure on yourself. Because if you only get 1, or for some unforeseen reason, 0 on Thursday, it's a whole bigger world of hurt come Sunday. Now you need a result, as opposed to, hey, if we get a point, great. If we don't, well, we weren't expecting it anyway. And then, like you said, the rest of the qualifiers get much easier from here. So,
yeah.
I mean,
what do you think Bruce is going with for a formation then?
4-4. This is Bruce Arena, 4-4-2. Has he really ever changed off of that? I mean, I'm a bigger fan of the what do they call it? The WM, but
yeah.
But he's going to go.
If you want to go back in time 50 years or whatever.
Yeah. 4 in the back, kind of 5 in the midfield and 1 up top. But your one of your midfielders is essentially just a trail forward. I mean, however you want to phrase that, something along those lines. That's what I think. Personally, that's what I would do, because I think, like, if you can get Bradley, because that pushes Pulisic into that more forward position, and then you have Bradley, with another holding midfielder, and I think you're in better shape. But we'll see what he does. I'm not sure. I think, like I said, I think the only changes, you're going to see Altidore in for Dempsey, and I think you'll have a replacement for John Brooks. That's the only 2 changes you're going to have, I think.
I mean, look, I will say I was surprised to see Bruce go with as direct a lineup as he did the other day against Venezuela. I really expected he was going to try some things out to see what he could get away with against TNT. Figuring he already knows what his lineup is. Osorio already knows what his lineup is. My biggest issue with the way that game turned out is that you went big, and yet you still managed to not get the win. And granted, it's a friendly just before important games, so nobody was trying. The biggest thing they were trying to do was not get hurt. But realistically, how many goals could we have given up before half?
Yeah, the first half was kind of painful to watch, which Pat and I talked about at length, where there was such a huge hole in the midfield where just spacing was very poor. They weren't very compact, and that left it wide open. And wow,
my issue with that is that in the end, you've now shown, I don't know, Mexico your weakness, and yes, of course, they already knew what it was, but to me, it's more of a psychological thing for both teams. If you want to play that team, you want to get the win. And I should say, if you want to play that lineup, not that team, because Venezuela. But.
And I think what Bruce is looking for is, let's face it, Venezuela is a better skilled, 10 behind the ball version than TNT is.
Yeah,
I think it was to get a good practice in where he's going to have to face it Because if they can break down Venezuela, breaking down TNT isn't going to be nearly as hard. And that's I think that's what they're, and I think that was the intent of that friendly completely.
Well, and because of their speed and the way they attacked on the wings and things a lot of the time, that also was kind of a good some of a good indicator or a good practice ahead of Mexico. So I understand why we played them. I mean, it actually makes sense. I actually think that was a pretty good tune-up game for teams that are available. Too often, I think these games are more kind of throwaways. I actually was kind of surprised that we played Venezuela because they actually seemed to sort of fit who we were coming up against. But again, to me, I really expected to not go all out because I didn't think Bruce would want to. I thought Bruce would try to play more head games with Mexico than he did.
It's Juan Carlos Osorio. He knows the U.S. inside and out. Obviously, at this point, I don't think there's head games you need to play with Mexico. I think Mexico and head games that ship sailed after we got beaten Columbus. That's gone. At this point, it's back to where Columbus owns us, and we have to show something again.
Yeah.
So there's no sense in the head games. No sense in playing tricks to set up for Mexico. Like I said, especially when you're reading reports that the players are having trouble adapting to Bruce's system. I'm not sure why. Again, that doesn't seem exactly. I'm not quite sure why it's the case. I don't think he plays the most detailed system.
They had with Klinsmann, you would think this would be like, oh, finally something I'm secure about.
Correct. And my point being though is that if you're having that, you need to get games in. You're going to want to get games in where you're working on that system and playing full force instead of screwing around. And now you've got guys that still aren't comfortable with each other. Because let's face it, in my opinion, when Bruce came in, you're now almost have to reintroduce themselves of, okay, here's where you're actually supposed to go.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, the problem with Klinsmann, and I've seen some of the guys talking about Bruce talking about this. The problem with him wasn't so much, in my opinion, wasn't so much player selection. It was that he didn't give clear direction of what he wanted. He was always doing that. Well, I want to switch things up and make them uncomfortable. The problem was you're always making them uncomfortable. Nobody knows where the hell they belong. Nobody knows where the guy next to him is supposed to be. And so you run into these problems of, well, where the hell am I supposed to pass to? Who the hell am I supposed to pass to? When you're comfortable with someone, when you've got consistency there, you know that I can always, if I have to, I could dump this ball over here blindly, and I know, whomever is going to be right there to pick it up. But these guys, sometimes they'd go out, it looked like they'd never played together, and that was a consistent problem with him. And then I think he lost the players because he was so quick to throw them under the bus when they didn't meet up or match up to his expectations, however unknown those might be. Sticking Bedoya in as a defensive midfielder and then pulling him, whatever that was, 15 minutes in or whatever the hell it was, that like first half sub.
Well, and then you have Jermaine Jones playing forward, playing center midfielder. Sorry, Mr. Grove. You're a big, I don't know if you're a Jermaine fan or not. If you followed this at all, I have a few words against Jermaine Jones, and I've been known to use a few 4-letter words in describing his play. I guess when you have Jermaine going walkabout, and between that and Jurgen going off the reservation completely, I think you ran into problems. So, like I said, I think they're getting used to the system because the system, I think it's more simplistic than it used to be. However, now you've got to start being able to read people and playing that much faster. And that's why, like I said, I think these are, you don't have games like the 4th preseason game in the NFL. You need to be ready. You have to treat them all that way because let's face it, now you're building towards next year. You need every point you can. You don't have time to take a game off, even a friendly, really. You need to make sure you're getting to where you're going. And that's where I think they're on their path. That's why I think you saw a strong lineup against Venezuela. Mexico, I think at this point as I said before, it matters to the fans. I don't think it matters to Bruce. To Bruce, it's just another game worth 3 points, and he's going to make damn sure he gets his 3 points first. Bruce isn't going to screw around trying to get more worried about a point against Mexico where he could potentially sacrifice 2 against or 3 against TNT. He'll get those 3 first.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I'll say that doesn't make sense, but I don't know. I still see it as TNT is probably the. I mean, they are in last place, but I think just if you look at them, the eye test, you look at them on paper, whatever, they are the weakest team in the hex. We should be able to play on par with anyone here. With the best here, and they are not the best. They're not even close. I think they were lucky to make the hex, really.
Yeah, whatever magic they had in the Gold Cup last year, they definitely it kind of fell away. I agree. They were lucky to get into the hex. However, they're there, and and I get it. The schedule was definitely front loaded in terms of your hardest games, but don't throw away 3 points. Like I said, reaching for one later. Make sure you get your 3 first. And I'm going to keep harping on that one, and that's why I said I could agree with Dempsey because of his age and whatever, and the altitude. And Josie's fresh, and hopefully his hangover from his brother's wedding is gone. But at this point, get your 3 before you worry about going into Mexico City. Go into Mexico City, play bunker ball, and try and steal a point. You never know what's going to happen. If you can get to the 60th minute there, we can talk about that game on Thursday or whatever, though. So
no, I'm Dominic. You have a good point. I mean, it's been 10 minutes since you made it, I guess, but Mexico hasn't looked as good as they did before coming into Columbus. It's true. They haven't looked as strong lately. They haven't looked as as well put together. So there are some things to say there. Cameron didn't play against Mexico and Costa Rica, and I think he's pretty well shown himself to probably be our best defender. I think while everyone, including me, was giving it to Brooks after probably the Copa America, seeing Cameron out of the lineup last fall really did show, I think, how important his role was or is. So I do think his inclusion or his being out there against Mexico should definitely help us. But anyway, back to TNT. What's your prediction for the game?
I think 3-0. Simply put, 3-0. Go out, get work done. I can't even see a goal being allowed. I think Tim Howard's playing well right now.
And
3-0.
Fuck their mothers if they maybe just the fans. I don't know.
Well, it is Colorado, so you never know.
Leipzig says that your kid's the next Pulisic and Carly Lloyd.
Yeah, I've been tracking that. I appreciate it, Leipzig. They kick. Trust me, my son can kick a soccer ball better than he can throw a baseball at this point. Which, go figure.
I don't know. I'm. Everyone's talking about Bradley. Yeah, the problem has been with Bradley, I think for several years at least, that if he doesn't have a partner, it seems that he's truly confident in, or something about if he doesn't trust some of the players around him, he ends up doing this thing where he drops back behind the center backs to go pick up the ball, and it just breaks up the entire midfield. You have to hope that's ending, that he's going to stop doing that altogether, not just on a regular basis, but just completely, because it makes his next pass harder. It eliminates the ability for defenders to kind of play out of the back. Suddenly becomes him playing out of the back, and now he's drawn an extra player from the opposing team up because there's another guy back, so they can push up, and it's just made the gap larger than between him and the next midfielder, which then makes it more likely that the ball is going to come loose.
Well, and that's exactly what happened in that first half against Venezuela. He was backtracking so far. Then now you're dragging Pulisic back too, and then that's what the huge gap was between Woods and Bobby Wood and Dempsey, and then Pulisic and Bradley. And that's why, the only one I've ever noticed that Bradley seems to excel with on the national team is almost so far has been Kyle Beckerman. Now,
I was just going to say the same thing, yeah.
I get it. I mean, with Jermaine Jones, like I said, nobody knows where Jermaine Jones is going, including Jermaine Jones. And that there was a comment about what do I have against Jones? That was it. And I will say it over and over again. He goes walkabout. He'll play forward. He'll play center back. He'll play right wing, left wing, wherever he feels like when he feels like it. And that was clear that Bradley didn't trust him. And the other part I wonder with Michael Bradley was how much did Klinsmann screw him up in 24 down in Brazil and trying to have him do more than what he should have been doing the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely unfortunate because it's not that, I mean, if you look at kind of his numbers and things, he didn't have a bad World Cup, but because so much was put on him, it accentuated, I think, all the mistakes and kind of downplayed all the positives, and he comes out looking a lot worse than he really was. And
yeah,
I think that probably just continued going forward because Klinsmann always was playing him out of position.
Well, and then you wonder how much of it got into his head, and it's almost like a case of the yips, for lack of a better term. Just there's certain things he lost his confidence and his notice, especially when Bruce came on board, as Michael Bradley started to look like Michael Bradley again, the one that we always saw that can control the center of the park, and he still has to get better than what he was. And at his age, I don't know if he can. He's shown he can, so he's got to get there though. Saw a question about Brooks Lennon and when we think he's going to hit the national team.
I actually wouldn't mind if he'd gotten a Gold Cup call-up. To me, he was sort of, Josh Sargent kind of cooled off in near the end of the U20 World Cup for them, but Brooks Lennon really was consistent throughout. I wouldn't mind giving him some more challenges. Is he going to start yet for the full national team? No, but I wouldn't mind if he'd gotten a chance to go out and at least train with the team for the Gold Cup and see what happens. Clearly, I think he is a talent for the future, but how much of a talent? How much does he? What does he really bring to the international game? Who knows? But he definitely was a consistently strong player for the 20s, and that should mean something.
Oh, absolutely. And again, him too. He's one that I like the fact that he's back over here, even though he's technically his rights are owned by Liverpool. That they sent him back here so he could. Yeah, I know. We could always start telling Arsene Wenger jokes and watch you melt down from there. But the fact that they're saying, hey, you know what? Go home and play as opposed to sitting here and not. Although looking at where what I'm looking at with the 40-man roster is I don't know who I would necessarily have him replace right now. That's the other part of the problem, where you're seeing some of the experimentation. A little bit older than him, but in that similar type of situation, you want to see what they can do. Yeah. And that's why I'm looking at it going, I just don't know who you take off of there necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a problem. It was sort of the same thing about Josh Sargent when we were talking about him a couple of weeks ago and saying, what about giving him a Gold Cup call-up? It still becomes, it's not like I would expect him, if he had gotten it, to play. Maybe not even to make the final cut, because in the end, who's he going to replace? Who's he truly better than? And I don't think he's better than anyone yet. But
Wando.
Well,
fuck Wando.
Yeah, fuck Wando's right. God.
Well, we're not there yet. We're not at that point of the show yet.
I have a meme that I created where it says like it's like the start of his shot, and you see the wide open goal, and it says like something like we're going to the semifinals. And then it's like, we're going home, or fuck Wando. I don't remember what I said in the other one, because then you see like the other one with the ball just soaring over. It's like, come the fuck on. Could have stumbled into that ball and it would have gone in the net.
Dude, I watched you do that time after time after time over the years.
Do it. I've watched other people do it, but
No, you never missed a shot. All right. Anyway, let's
Not
move
like
on.
that, I wouldn't have.
Yeah, you would have.
Dwyer is a glorified Wando. No, he's an English Wando then.
Nope.
Um,
Dwyer be the one most likely to be running out of the bar, chit with the beer in hand still.
uh, what do we think of the Gold Cup keeper roster?
I loved it. Yeah, I don't. The only one that I don't understand why he's on it is Tim Howard. Frankly, I think
Yeah,
it's.
that
I
doesn't make any sense to me. You know what you're getting with them. I mean, I know that we want to win this, but at the same time, uh, is there going to be another Confederations Cup? Which also we should probably. I was going to bring up Qatar in a few minutes once we finish talking about the national team, but uh, how much value is there to winning this Gold Cup? You know, it doesn't. I don't think there's going to be a Confederations Cup in 2020 2022. So does winning this get you anything besides a trophy?
well, you could still theoretically do a Confederations Cup in 2021 if you wanted to. It may not necessarily be in Qatar. I don't know right now. We'll get to that later, but nobody knows what's going on there. Um, like I said, and it was funny. Pat and I were talking like Joe Bendick. How did he get? And then I watched him play on Sunday night, and then I'm like, never mind. He makes a lot of sense. It's going to be Jesse Gonzalez. He's going to play. I think he's going to play a lot.
That was a big one. I was surprised to see that, especially. I mean, we just talked a few weeks ago that he came out and said, "I feel more Mexican."
It's hard to say, and it might have been a negotiation. Hey,
Maybe, yeah.
Everything I've kind of read is they said it was kind of like his people were saying, "You play me, I'll come." So that's why I think he's there, and I think he's going to play, and I think he's going to start. And I would love to see it. The other one I don't quite understand why he's on there, other than he's been there a long time. Is Bragg Guzan. I mean, his end of his season with Middlesbrough, I get it. Middlesbrough's defense was absolutely brutal, but I want to see what else you have. I want to see Bill
Yeah,
Hamid. I want to see Jesse
I
Gonzalez,
would
and I want to see Joe Bendick. I'm
guys in that case. I mean,
those are the three. If those are the three I'd like to see, and then it almost feels like this roster has a makeup of like a knockout round where you can start making some changes and bring in some of the A guys.
yeah.
I think in the group stage, I don't think you're going to see much of it. Like I said, I'd love to see Bendick. I'd love to see Jesse Gonzalez and Bill Hamid. Sean Johnson, I don't fully understand his inclusion either. I think the ceiling on him has already been reached. He's a great shot stopper. His positioning is terrible. His defensive management is terrible. His distribution is absolutely terrible. Maybe it's better in New York. I'm not watching him all the time, but I've watched him enough in Chicago. I know what he is. He's not going to be anybody who should figure because, like I said, of those factors. You need somebody who as a defense, where he's going to be and dependable. He's going to make the amazing stave, but he's going to have to make a lot more amazing staves because his positioning is absolutely awful. So the other ones, like I said, Bendick was absolutely outstanding when it was 11 on 10, 11 on 9 against the Fire on Sunday night. So I get his inclusion. Bill Hamid, if he doesn't get hurt last year, I think he's a lot more into the pool than you see now. And then, like I said, Jesse Gonzalez he's Jesse Gonzalez. Let's see what he's got. I think he might be your next one. I really do. I think he is that talented.
Holding the place until Horvath, because we've already got. I saw somebody just say. Who was it? Somebody just said hot take. Joshua, hot take. Howard and Gazan need to be on their way out. Hello, Horvath.
I'm not as high on Horvath as everybody else is. I think he's going to be very good. Don't get me wrong, but I said and it's probably because I haven't seen as much of him as I have seen of Jesse Gonzalez play, and that's part of it. So I go with the ones I've seen. I'm really impressed with what Gonzalez brings to the table. But
to me, I mean, what's impressive about Horvath is you've got presumably a Champions League keeper at 21. I mean, to me, and this is why I thought maybe don't take him to the Gold Cup even before this roster came out. I guess we should have announced our roster last week, or my predictions was that under the circumstances, considering he just got the starting job at a new team, I would rather him, get an off season, go train with them, and have the possibility of being the starter come the fall, because he should be playing in bigger games and playing more consistently again. And then, hey, maybe in a year, 2 years, whatever, he gets another bump up to an even bigger team. And yeah, then you are probably talking about who's the next full-time keeper. This list, I don't understand Howard. To me, he is, you know what you're getting, and at his age, you want to find the next generation. I mean, yeah, he's most likely, it looks like, our keeper in the next World Cup. Maybe Guzan gets it back, but Guzan's got to get playing, and that's why I probably wouldn't have taken him, because in the end, I do think it probably would have benefited him to go get more regular game time playing in Atlanta and just get him out there and starting again.
No, I think you've got that pretty well dialed in. I agree with you on Brad Guzan. He needs some confidence back, and I think he needs to play, especially after the nightmare he had at the end of the year at Middlesbrough. I think he would have been better suited. Now, granted, it's a 40-man roster. We don't know who they're all going to carry, which ones are going to be carried at the end of the day. I still think Tim Howard is rostered for the later rounds. I don't think you'll see him in the opening rounds. I really don't.
I think that makes sense.
And honestly, I think the same as I'm looking at the roster. I do have it up in front of me. That's what I keep looking over. You can make the same argument with Michael Bradley. You can make the same argument probably with Christian Pulisic. I mean, go right down the line. You can almost see, I think, what do they say? They can make 8 changes to the roster?
It's something like that. I don't remember what the number is.
Clint Dempsey, Josie Altidore, Christian Pulisic, Michael Bradley, Tim Howard. You start looking at, you could start to see the 8 that he wants to bring in later to start augmenting and going to see what's really there, versus the other
Pulisic
one.
To me, I don't get it all. My only guess, because all in all, I'd rather see him, and Joshua makes a good point. That's exactly what I was going to say too, is that I'd much rather see him at Dortmund, getting to know the new coach, training with them in the preseason, and winning his position for the future. So he stays, or maybe becomes a starter, depending on what happens with the rest of that team this summer. The only reason I see, as I've tried to make sense of why he'd be there, is it's Bruce trying to establish or confirm whatever this team as Pulisic's now. You are setting him up as everything goes through this kid, so you want him out there as much as possible to get as much experience and to get as many of the other guys used to looking to him, finding him, passing to him, making a run for him, whatever.
And that's a perfectly valid point as well. I mean, I think you are realistically looking at who takes the captain's ban from Michael Bradley when Michael Bradley decides he doesn't want to do it anymore. I think realistically that's what you're looking at. So you might be 100% onto something with that, but that's if he's on the roster for the opening round. Like I said, I could also see it as a case of let's see what we got, because it's the same, where you're kind of talking like try to do that with the TNT game, which I think that's way too dangerous of a thing to do. This is one of those where you can do some of that, where you're playing teams like Cuba and teams that are just absolutely awful, but you get a chance to see what some of these guys can do. The other one, like I said, I'd like to see a lot of in that holding role would be, and I'm biased, as Dax McCarty. I want to see what he can do. I want to see him get a longer run out and kind of go from there. But it's interesting. I guess we'll know more as the roster gets narrowed down. But the goalkeeper selection, like I said, Guzan, I'm not sure about. I think Sean Johnson, like I said, literally is there because they wanted to name 6. I can't see any other reason other than that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, Dominic talks about if Bill Hamid was ever healthy, he'd be our keeper. I think that's I think you're probably right. But God damn it, that guy doesn't get hurt.
No, and that's why
hurt.
And that's why I'm wondering if him and Gonzalez might both split time early. Maybe he'll get a run out as well to see, because again, I watched him again. It was against the Fire on a Saturday. That game should have been 3, 4, 5, and except that he's always where he needed to be. He's always making the save that needs to be made. He deserves it. I mean, he really deserves that run out. And if he doesn't get hurt, I think you are looking at somebody. You aren't worried about Brad Guzan anymore. It's now Tim Howard, and Bill Hamid that you're worried about. The skills aren't there. If the injuries, if he's fully healthy, he's fully capable of doing it.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Now, one thing we haven't discussed, but in the news, all these countries in the Middle East are severing their political ties with Qatar. They've instituted travel bans. They're not letting their citizens go to Qatar. They're not letting Qataris come into their countries. They're blaming them for supporting terrorism, which, whatever. That, I guess I can look the other way on, because I could also say, yeah, but maybe that's just a political game at this. You're saying this because there are an awful lot of ways in which we can point to Saudi Arabia, for instance, as supporting terrorism, and they're saying this about Qatar. So whatever. Qatar is, in general, a pretty peaceful nation, if you can discount the fact that they basically own slaves. But there's not a lot of, like, I don't know, kind of what we know of as sort of, or what we think of as Middle Eastern violence. There's not really that in Qatar, but all these countries are severing their ties. I think this, really strikes a chord as, say, American fans who want to see a World Cup, when FIFA's come out and said, hey, travel ban could affect whether or not you get a World Cup. Well, there are countries now that won't allow travel to and from Qatar, and they're going to have a World Cup. On top of all the other issues that they've had, now there's this. My guess is they're not, FIFA won't pull this, but I don't know. I mean, I certainly could see where they would, because finally maybe they found their out. They've managed to withstand the well, we know they bought it, we know you guys sold it, we know there were all these crimes, and they're kind of, well, what can we do?
It's FIFA.
I know.
It is. It's not going anywhere.
This is maybe their one chance to go, well, and try to get out of it. The problem becomes, though, it looks like we're going to get 2026 right now, and who else could take a World Cup on this short of notice? Probably England. That's Brazil. The only other. I mean, well, I was going to say, like, Brazil and Germany, but you don't want to do those immediately. They just have them.
Realistically, it'd be the United States or England or Germany. You could make the argument if that's where, unfortunately, CNN's already, as of 44 minutes ago, U.S. suspects Russian hackers planted fake news behind the Qatar crisis. So, without going into the politics, and where I really don't want to go into, because I don't care that much, it's not going to change anything. They're still going to try to do everything they can to have it in Qatar, because if nothing else, FIFA thinks that their shit doesn't stink, and if they made that choice, hell or high water, because otherwise it wouldn't be in Russia. Let's face it for what it is. It wouldn't be in Russia next year. Yeah. That to me is almost worse than Qatar at this point, other than, like you said, the slaves and the death of probably another 100,000 people between now and then.
People are killing to build the stadiums for something like $10 a day. That's ridiculous. But yeah, Russia, don't take electronics with you. Whatever you have, buy something there and trash it. You just use burner phones, whatever. Like Pat and I, while we were still, and I mean, I don't know, I guess we still kind of talked about it, but I think maybe we're backing off this thought of going to the World Cup next year. Had fully intended, like, oh, we were going to buy burner phones there, and you just accept everything you have has been hacked the moment you get off the plane. And then you have the fact, then you have things like, their stance on human rights. They're I don't know. That one, they're both horrible.
Is Russia's stance on human rights that humans actually have rights, or they don't? I think they're on the pro rel side. They're rel on the humans having actual rights. No, and that's no different than, like, when we went to, when I went to Afghanistan, it was, you bought a Roshan phone and you left it there. I gave mine on to somebody else, and same thing. You never said anything that was relevant, and it's a shame that the world still has to be that way, especially something like the World Cup. But you're going into Putin's backyard. That's exactly how it's going to have to be. But like I said, I think ultimately, Russia is every bit as bad as Qatar. These next 2 World Cups are going to be absolute shit shows in that sense. And
Yeah. No, I
so,
think you're exactly right. Yeah, I mean it's going to be it FIFA will hope they come out clean, but realistically, no. This was just they were both about money, and there was nothing. They didn't hide it. I mean, they'd become so brazen with it. They didn't. I don't even think they kind of feigned caring.
but realistically, and that's for another conversation. You can look that way at almost anything in sports. It's always about money now and what can make the most money. You look at where the Super Bowls are going. You look at where the NCAA championships are going in the United States for football, for basketball. You look at where the Olympics are going. It's always about money and where they think they can make the most money.
Yeah.
Other than having it consistently in the United States. At least CONCACAF has got that part right. Hey, let's just keep putting in the Gold Cup in the United States because that's where it's going to make us the most money every damn time. Instead of putting it somewhere else and forcing people to build and spend a ton of money they don't have and they shouldn't have. So
there is that.
We need, and at this point, I'm starting to get depressed. So let's finish this one on a happier note. So you got my prediction at 3-0. What's your prediction?
I'm going 4-0. I just think this is a bit like Honduras a year ago in Columbus, where that was that game where we all felt like, oh God, we could be done right here. We may not even make the hex, and then we went in and just rolled over them. I think that's basically going to be what this is. TNT, their fans were fun. When I was at a TNT qualifier years ago, but
and they're still dynamite.
Yeah. Well, were you with us that game? I kept going.
I was not.
I was singing AC/DC TNT, but I was going, "You're TNT, you're not dynamite." And I was just screaming it. You're TNT, you won't win the fight.
So you're saying also, 4? You're thinking 4?
Yeah. I also love that Stern John is the only player I can ever name on their team, and
Joe Jones.
Oh yeah, I guess. I used to always just call every player Stern John because I was like, I don't know which one he is, and I think they never have names in their jerseys anyway. Well, what was his brother's name? It's something. There was another John on there. I can't remember. So I technically did know, I guess, a couple names, but I didn't know which player was which. And to me, it was just funny to you only have one player that anyone knows. So it's like, just call every player Stern John.
All right, let me keep talking here for a minute because I'm still looking to see if I can find who his brother is while you're talking here. So
I should know it. I've just forgotten it. But anyway, yeah, their fans were fun, but they're not a good team. I used to know a guy from TNT. Actually, was the guy who I went to college with him. Was the guy who tackled Richard Reed, the shoe bomber. Yeah, Alex says that friend in Qatar tells him it's basically impossible to go in and out of the country right now.
Okay.
Anyway,
did Pat give us a prediction for this game?
Kenwin Jones, of course. Yeah. Nice job. Nice job, Christian. Yeah, Kenwin Jones. How could I forget Kenwin Jones? Stern John was the goalie, right?
He's a center midfielder, dude.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Then was his brother? I don't know. It's been so long, since how long has that guy been retired for? He was like 40.
He's 40. I think he's 40 now.
Oh, is that all?
He is. He will be 40. He'll be 41 in October, dude.
Okay, well, at least he's older than me then.
Let's see. Yeah, Jovan Jones, Kevin Molino with Minnesota United. They have Kevin George, who plays for Jacksonville Armada. Kenway Jones, who's with Atlanta. I'm trying to see who else. Mikael Williams with the Crapids.
What's up, audience?
Oh, look at this loser.
All right. Yeah. We really have scraped the bottom now.
Have you gotten any more things signed by a player tonight?
What's that?
Did you get any other things signed by a player tonight?
Yes. My son got his Michael Bradley jersey signed by Michael Bradley, and he got his hat signed by Guzan Bradley and Alexi Lawless, and then I got photos with all those dudes.
That's pretty impressive. TJ, did you hear that?
No, I was sorry. I was talking to Charlie.
Okay.
To answer your question, sorry, Chris. Avery John.
Avery John. Yeah. I knew it was. I knew he had a brother. I'd forgotten his name. I was just trying to make sure that you could hear Pat as well, because he sounds very hollow. But I think that's because he's just talking on the phone while he's driving.
And it's also Pat. It's pretty hollow no matter what he's saying. So
anyway, Pat, if you can hear us, do you have a prediction for Thursday's game?
I think the other night with TJ, I said it would be 3-1, so I'm going to stick with 3-1.
All right. We got 3-1, 3-0, and 4-0. And on that note, I think we anybody else got anything to say?
Well, let's see. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on we on Instagram?
We are on Instagram. I just hadn't gotten.
Are we on
We
Snapchat?
do. I put photos up today.
We are not on Snapchat, because fuck Snapchat. We hate you, Snapchat. You suck. You hate you guys who are behind your tune. But we are on Twitter. We are on Facebook. We are on Instagram. We're
on YouTube.
On YouTube, as you can tell.
And I guess my final thought is fuck Wando.
There's that.
And
Indeed.
all right, Chris.
Pat, do you have any magic last words?
I will say that that event was very cool, and there weren't that many people there, which was strange. If you get to watch it online, I think US Soccer will have it on their Facebook and on their website. They said a lot of fun stuff about the Snow Classico and the stuff that was going on during the match. And I will be putting some stuff up from tonight's thing on the USFanTV social media crap channels. So there you go. And you're done.
Enjoy our crap channels, everyone. We will see you Thursday night. Go US.
You're done.